box plots. So as per normal, just so we're getting into a good routine, I'm not putting anything on show my homework because every lesson is live. I'm just setting them, I'm scheduling them, or every single lesson on Teams. I'm also making sure that I have the appropriate worksheets attached to that schedule on Teams. So if you can, try and download the worksheet in advance of the lesson. You don't have to. If you'd rather just sort of look at Dr. Frost for the questions and write your answers straight into your orange book, that's absolutely fine. But as you know, what I am looking for you to do, whether you're doing a Word document or not, is make sure you're uploading your answers onto Dr. Frost during the lesson, because I can keep an eye on that. I'm watching that analysis throughout the lesson. So as per normal, I'll do the teaching bit, which is recorded. I'll stop the recording, and then I want you to spend the rest of the lesson completing the worksheet. At that point, I'm totally happy if you want to unmute or have your camera on or whatever, because it's not being recorded. So you'll see from the scheme of work in the corner that this ties in a bit from what we were doing last term when we were doing the cumulative frequency. Do you remember that sort of falling over S-curves where you're drawing lines on it and working out the lower quartile and the upper quartile? And it also ties in with what we were doing last lesson when we were working out the lower quartile and the upper quartile from a list of data. Okay, so for this one, imagine we had gone and had that list of data at the top. So that might be the number of goals scored in a match or something. All right, so 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. So that bit at the top. And imagine that we've gone and worked out the mean, the median, the mode, the range, and the interquartile range. And they're all worked out up there, just like we were doing last lesson. What you're going to need to do is to know how to link those various numbers with this diagram at the bottom, okay, which is called a box plot. Okay, now with the box plot, you start off at the very end on the left with the lowest mark achieved by anybody, or the lowest number of goals. So obviously from the list of data at the top, okay, the smallest number of goals would be 0, so that lowest mark would correspond to 0. So I put 0 at that extreme end. And then at the other end, obviously the highest mark or the highest number of goals would be 6. So just from the list of data. Now, you then have that rectangular business in the middle, and the rectangle starts at the lower quartile and it finishes at the upper quartile. And the median mark is going to be somewhere inside that rectangle. Now, it's not necessarily in the middle of that rectangle. It could be anywhere inside of that rectangle. Okay. Now, if you've gone and done the work like we've done at the top on this one, and you've worked out that the median is 2, you see that I worked out the median to be 2. That 2 is that level of that median. Now the lower quartile, and again I'll take you back to the lesson we did last lesson. How, from a list of data, how did we work out the lower quartile? If you remember what we did, we started off by working out the median, which was the middle number, which was that 2. I'm just going to put some green fluorescent pen on that 2. And then to work out the lower quartile, we looked at the numbers to the left-hand side of the 2, which I'm just underlining in green. We looked at the numbers to the left-hand side of the 2, and to work out the lower quartile, we took the middle of those numbers. So the middle of that 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2 is that 1 that I'm just about to fluorescent pen in light blue. Okay, so our lower quartile is 1, so that ties in with the diagram. Our lower quartile would be at 1. And then, just to remind you from our last lesson, to work out the upper quartile, we went and looked at all the numbers to the right-hand side of the median, which I'm just underlining in orange, and we found the middle of those numbers, which on this case would be 4. So our upper quartile would be 4. So it's quite a straightforward, simple diagram, okay? The lowest mark is right at the left, the highest mark, the highest number of goals, whatever is right, is the extreme right. And the rectangle goes from the lower quartile to the median to the upper quartile. Now, from that, you can work out a couple of spreads, a couple of measures of dispersion. So if you you remember this from the past, to work out the range, I'm just about to do that fluorescent pen in blue. To work out the range, remember it's the highest mark, take away the lowest mark. So that would be, so literally that's the complete length of your whole diagram. And then to work out the interquartile range, which I'm going to fluorescent pen in red, the interquartile range, you took the upper quartile and took it away from the lower quartile. So that is the length of the rectangle in its entirety. Okay. So if you were given the box plot and you had to work out the range, just work out the length of the whole of the total diagram. And if you were given the box plot and you had to work out the interquartile range, just work out the length of the rectangle. So I'm just going to pop another example on the board. Okay. Now to speed things up, I've already worked out all the various bits and pieces. So I want you just to have a quick look at that diagram. Okay, to look at that information rather, and give you a few seconds to digest the answers. So we've got the mean, the median, the mode, the range, and the interquartile range. And I want us to go and slot the various numbers onto the diagram at the bottom. So have a look at the data right at the very top. I know that's quite small. Okay, you can see that we've worked out the lower quartile to be 4. Just fluorescent penning that in red. I don't think that's come through at your end quite yet. So the lower quartile is 4. There we go. The median mark, the mark in the middle, was 5, coming through in green fluorescent pen in a second. And the upper quartile was the 6, coming through in light blue in a few seconds. We've got a bit of a lag now. So the median is green, is in 5, and the upper quartile will come through in light blue fluorescent pen in a second, which will be the 6. So taking those numbers and popping them onto my box plot at the bottom, the very smallest number we've got in that list is 3. So that's over on the left hand side. So look at the diagram at the bottom, there's a bit of a lag. That smallest number is going to be coming through as 3 in a few seconds time. There we go. The lower quartile, so which of those numbers at the top is going to be the lower quartile? That's going to be 4. So that's at the beginning of the rectangle. The median, the middle number, is the green one. That's the line inside the rectangle. That's going to be 5. The upper quartile is the light blue one. So that's the end of the rectangle. That's going to be 6. And the greatest number of time taken walking between lessons, that's probably coming over from art or something, was going to be the biggest number in the list, which is going to be 10. And that's it really, guys. It's a pretty straightforward task today. So I've gone and set it on Dr. Frost. So as always, just like a normal lesson, I will stop the recording now. You can then unmute if you want. You can then have your camera on if you want, because it's not being recorded. I want you spending the rest of the lesson completing the questions on Dr. Frost. And just like in lessons, I will share my screen with the questions that you're doing. So if you get stuck on any, just unmute and ask me for some help. So don't unmute and show your pictures quite yet, because I just want to stop the recording first. So all stay as you are just while I stop the recording.